What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Crack a Pack episode, and this one is actually really special. For the first time, I think ever, in almost 250 episodes, we are opening up a pack of Starter 1999. This is a very old set, obviously, one that we don't get to see very often, and one that has a number of value cards in it, so hopefully we can get something really, really good here. Of course, we're going to go through this as if it is a pack one, pick one scenario, so we're going to pretend like we're drafting and hopefully be able to figure out what our first round draft pick would be. So this should be a relatively powered down set. Obviously it is a starter set and old school as well. So hopefully this will be a fairly easy one, but we do kick off here. We do get lands in the pack as well. We have a forest, obviously not much to talk about there. Mountain. Our rare here is Trained Org. It's a 6/6 vanilla creature for 6 and a red. Also, I do apologize, I don't know the pack order on these, so hence this coming up a little early. But this is a 6/6 for 7 vanilla creature, very classic card that we saw in a lot of starter edition sets. And it's honestly just kind of a big beater. It's nothing too spectacular, but in this time period and in this set, it's actually pretty high powered. It's good to have a card like this. And so this very well may end up being the pick. Okay, so one of the actual high value cards is Goblin Lore. So it's a sorcery for 1 and a red, draw 4 cards, then discard 3 cards at random from your hand. The reason that this card actually was up there in value was because of Hollow One, the deck that we saw a little bit of play of in Modern. Unfortunately not so much anymore, but it was actually a really fun deck. It was just very, very random, unfortunately. And so the consistency wasn't there, but Goblin Lore is a very key piece to that deck. Unfortunately, in Limited, not so much. It's really not all that great. So far, definitely Trained Org over anything else. Howling Fury is a sorcery for 2 and a black. Target creature gets +4/+0 until end of turn. This is a very expensive but very powerful combat trick. 3 mana is a little bit on the high side for a combat trick in my mind, and unfortunately, it's really just a power buff. Normally that's not terrible. I mean, you can swing this. It's definitely a playable card, but I definitely would rather have the creature. False Peace is a sorcery for 1 white. Target player can't attack on his or her next turn. So this is very much a fog effect. I generally speaking don't like these, especially in Limited. They just don't do all that much. If you're building around them in like a constructed format, you can turbo fog and then go into something really, really big. I know Maze's End was a classic example where you just you fog for a number of turns until you can get all the guild gates out and then you Maze's End and win. Very silly deck. There's tons and tons of variations on that. That's just one example. This is kind of in that realm where they skip their attack phase. It's not good. Unfortunately, it's just not a very powerful card. Hollow Dogs is a creature for 4 and a black. It is a 3/3, and when it attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This isn't actually that bad, considering this is a starter set. Obviously, for 5 mana, you'd like a little more than a 3/3, even a 5/3, but it does actually get in for some damage. It's a very aggressive, it leans toward the aggressive side, and so I do like it for that reason, but again, not more than the Org. It's just too powerful in this set. Venerable Monk is a 2/2 for 2 and a white. When it comes into play, you gain 2 life. This is another card that we see a lot of in a lot of different starter sets. Pretty classic 2/2 with a little bit of upside. It is for 3 mana, so it's a little bit under powered, but honestly, it kind of balances out with that gain 2 life. It's definitely a filler kind of card, but it is playable, not more obviously than the Org. Monstrous Growth, is a sorcery for 1 and a green, and target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. This can't really classify as a combat trick because it is a sorcery, not an instant. So it's not something that you're going to be able to play in the middle of combat. You are going to have to do it most likely before your combat. And so it's not really that, I mean, it's powerful. So it's kind of a win more card. In Limited, win more cards are generally a little bit discouraged just because they really aren't that high impact. They're not going to dig you out of a spot. They're really only good if you're already winning. This can end a game very quickly. 4 power is a lot, and 4 toughness means it's going to keep it alive. You're able to swing in with a really powerful creature, and for only 2 mana, that is a pretty big buff, but I'm still not a huge fan of this card. If it was instant speed, absolutely would be a huge upside, but unfortunately it isn't. Devoted Hero is a 1/2 for 1 white vanilla creature. This is a perfectly serviceable 1-drop. It actually is a little bit over the 1/1 kind of threshold for a 1-drop, and so for that reason I actually do like this card. Again, not more than the Org. The Org is just too powerful. Most likely that's going to be our pick if I had to guess, but this is a very good card. Lone Wolf is a 2/2 for 2 and a green. You may have it deal its combat damage to the defending player, as though it were not blocked. So essentially, if this creature was blocked, you have the option, instead of dealing the damage to the opponent's creature, you can just deal it straight to the opponent. That being said, the creature on the opponent's side still does damage to Lone Wolf, so that doesn't really make it unblockable by any means. That's kind of the big difference between this and unblockable. It's a fine 3-drop. I like it. It's definitely a card that I would play in a green deck, just because it can kind of keep you moving forward, especially with like a combat trick or something like that. You can really deal some heavy damage to the opponent regardless of whether or not this is blocked. So I do like it for that reason. Again, not more than the Trained Org, but it is really good. Bog Raiders is a 2/2 for 2 and a black. It does have Swamp Walk, so it is unblockable as long as the defending player controls a swamp. It's just a 2/2 with random upside. As we're seeing, a lot of 2/2s are at 3 mana, and normally they have a little bit of upside with them. This is kind of on the weak end of that upside just because Swamp Walk is so specific. Something like Lone Wolf is obviously good no matter what deck you're up against. The Swamp Walk is really only good if you're up against a black deck, which obviously some of the time you will be, so in that case it's going to be great, but on average this is not a card I'm all that excited about. I would much rather have something like the Lone Wolf at 3 mana, so. Ingenious Thief is a 1/1 for 1 and a blue. It does have flying, and when it comes into play, you look at target player's hand. I actually kind of like this card. I like the information that comes out of this. Information is very important in Magic, and so being able to look at the opponent's hand and kind of plan around that is fantastic. Not to mention this is a flyer, and obviously there's not too many flyers in this set. There will be more than what we're seeing, but it does get in early and hopefully deal a couple points of damage. So I do like it for that reason. And then late game, it can just block a huge threat in the air if need be. And so I like it. Again, not more than the Org, but I do like it. Sleight of Hand. So this is also a pretty good card. So it's a sorcery for 1 blue. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other one on the bottom of your library. So this is really popular in Modern as a cantrip card because it's one of the few that is actually legal in Modern. But it is a powerful card. It's one that for any blue deck, this probably is just going to fit right in. It's only 1 mana, so it's not taking up a huge portion of your deck by any means. It's going to be really easy to play efficiently. It is sorcery speed, not instant speed, so worth noting there, you're not going to be able to play it on your opponent's turn if you leave up a counter or something like that. But I do like this. This is perfectly fine. I usually am not a huge fan of card draw in just a limited environment because really card draw is good, but it's not as powerful when all of your threats really need to be dealing with what's on board. And so it's perfectly fine. Definitely would want it if I was in blue, but I would not want to first pick it. And then finally, our last card here is Wild Griffin. So it's a 2/2 for 2 and a white with flying. Again, we're seeing that 3 mana 2/2, but this has actually pretty big upside with flying. Flying is really powerful in a starter set because not a lot of creatures have starter sets, or excuse me, and not a lot of starter sets have flying creatures. Let's get that correct. But this is actually a perfectly good 3-drop. Would definitely want it, but pretty easy Trained Org for me. I didn't expect anything too crazy out of this pack, but we did get Goblin Lore, which is pretty awesome, and actually really like opening this set. This is a fun one. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave a like or a comment down below, and as always, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our awesome content. But with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next Crack a Pack video.